Hello and welcome back. This is the Red Rum and Red Wine podcast. This is your host, Kristen.
And your other host, Sara. What's up?
What is up? Oh my gosh, there are actually people out there in the podcasting realm listening to us. This is actually insane to think about.
Thank you so much for giving us a chance and hopefully for sticking around.
Yes, it's definitely more than the 2 downloads that I was anticipating, including you and me downloading them ourselves. Mm-hmm. So, much better than we anticipated, and yeah, can't wait to see where it goes.
Yes. Speaking of... I was just about to ask you, speaking of where it's going... What are you drinking?
I am drinking Serendipity from Grape Creek. My mom is a member there. She's a wineaholic and has a little membership there, and she gets wine every month, and oh my god, this is actually one of my favorite bottles from them. It's really, really good. Very smooth. Is it
a subscription place online, or is it a local place?
You know, I probably should have figured that out. That
sounds awesome.
Yeah, I want to say that it's just a Texas vineyard, and I don't think that you can get it in store. Ooh. Sorry, I'm promoting a wine that I don't think you can drink, but if you're in Texas, I do believe that you can drink it, and it is very good. I freaking love it. What about you, Sara?
Wow.
What are you drinking tonight?
I looked at the name of the bottle when I was pouring my glass so that I could tell you that, but I already forgot. Because it's not the cheap wine I get from Walmart. It's the cheap wine from Albertsons. So it's the one I don't normally get. Albertsons, yeah, it's like but it's not like a Walmart. It's like a Whole Foods, but not as
like a nice Walmart.
Holy, yeah, it's a market, so they don't have like the clothes and.
So there's like not a church in it.
Right. You can't spend the night.
Hi, people. Are you still there? Are you still listening?
It's just me, like a. I'm trying to think of another grocery store to compare it to, honestly.
Like a Kroger?
Like one that's in. Yeah.
Do you know
pretty
Kroger?
Much like a Kroger.
I only know that from South Carolina. Or like a Piggly Wiggly.
Yeah, kind of. It's kind of like a nicer grocery store, because we have other grocery stores, but they're kind of more like...
So maybe like a Trader Joe's?
Grocery store. Yeah, except it's not all organic. They have the better organic options along with, the cheaper stuff.
Yeah, well...
Anyways.
This is not your grocery recommendation podcast. This is a murder podcast, by the way, just to let you know, for those who are clicking on for the first time. Yeah. Well, it's a good thing that we have wine, because today's case scared the shit out of me. Last night, doing some last minute research for this thing, and literally almost died 5 times in my sleep. It was not a good time. So,
can't wait.
It's gonna be good.
Can't wait for a bad time.
Yeah, speaking of, so it reminds me that we actually are doing a new thing 3 episodes in. I know we're already switching it up. So on our Instagram, go watch me embarrass myself. The cover art that we have for our photos was actually done by yours truly. The inspiration behind that cover art was actually due to today's episode, which is Bigfoot. Oh, Mr. Big and Hairy. What are your thoughts on Bigfoot, Sarah? Are you a Bigfoot believer?
As I mentioned before, I'm kind of a see it to believe it person, and there's not a lot of concrete proof on Bigfoot. And so I would love to believe that there's this mammal living in our world, tucked away in different woodland areas and different types of terrain, you know, but I'd have to see one to be like, hell yeah, they're real.
Well, have you seen that photo, that really famous photo that everyone associates with when Yeah. So I was using that photo, obviously, as the cover art. It's like the most known thing about him. So what do you think of that photo? Because honestly, I hadn't looked at it in quite some time because Bigfoot is not my thing. I do like the paranormal, but I'm not a big, like, believer in it. So it's kind of funny that I'm doing this case, but looking it up after so long, I mean, I know that there are, like, documentaries on it going pretty in-depth, but it looks kind of fake to me. Like, I don't know, I drew the eyes in a particular way that, honestly, it made it look like a mask, but I don't know if it's just, like, the graininess of the photo. We'll post it on the Instagram, along with my beautiful self-drawn portrait of it. You'll really see the comparison when they're side by side, but
it's pretty grainy, and from far away, if I just like saw it in person walking across the river like that, I might kind of believe that it's Bigfoot. But from documentaries I've seen, someone has admitted to dressing up in a Bigfoot costume, and he mentioned, like, yeah, zoom in on the pocket, you can see where my wallet sticks out. But it really is just kind of hard to tell with how grainy the picture is.
Yeah.
But you can also kind of look at where the waist is. It almost looks like a top because it has this line of
It
waist.
almost looks like they have, like, boobs in the photo.
Yeah, and in the documentary I saw, they referred to this particular Bigfoot sighting. They called her Miss Bigfoot or Mrs. Bigfoot.
Oh, so they had even said it was a female?
Well, they called her that, I'm assuming, because of the boobs.
Yeah, I don't know. See, like, I don't believe in Bigfoot, but then I heard this story and I was like, well, shit, you know, something may actually be going on here. And so I decided to just drop what I was doing right away and start researching this case. And the case that I'm doing today is the Alaskan bullworm. No, it's not. I'm sorry. It's the hairy bushman of Portlock, Alaska. I'm sorry.
What's a bullworm?
Have you not seen that episode of SpongeBob?
Oh, that bullworm.
Where he's wrangling the bull. He's like, it's big, it's pink, I think it's hairy. It's an Alaskan bullworm. That's all I heard throughout researching this case was like that going on repeat in my mind. Okay, no, it's fine. It's just me. But yeah, shout out to Mr. Ballin for giving me the idea of this case. If y'all have never heard of him, please go check him out. We're going to lose all of our viewers to him, but this guy is absolutely awesome. He is an amazing storyteller. He is ex-military, gone strange, dark, and mysterious. And yeah, he just has a lot of amazing cases that really intrigue you and get your attention, and this is one of them. I will try to link the episode that it was on down below, so feel free to go check him out, but remember that we're the ones that told you about him, so stay loyal to us, okay? So Alaska is, as you know, very rugged terrain. They have fucking wild ass shows about Alaska and the people that live in them, so shit's rough. I mean, I visited there once and it's cold. It's beautiful, but deadly as shit. Like, I wouldn't want to live there.
Burr.
Brr. So it is also known to have a lot of Bigfoot shit go down on top of everything else. The first time we really hear of Bigfoot instances, at least from what I was seeing in my research, could definitely go way further back, but we're going to start around the 1900s. So in 1900, near Thomas Bay, there was a prospector who was actually climbing a tree in order to get his bearings and find out where he is on his journey, doing whatever the ish he wants to do. And he looks over and actually sees a group of what he can only describe as big, giant, fur-covered creatures just sprinting in his direction. Full throttle, going at him, and he's just clinging to a tree going, what the actual fuck is going on?
What the fuck?
Yeah, so now, obviously terrified and watching these things go straight towards him, he instantly decides, okay, if I stay here, I'm dead meat. I need to get out. So he climbs as fast as he can down the tree. He jumps into the boat that he had tied next to it, and he paddles away right in the nick of time. Like, as soon as he's making a clearing through the river, he is seeing those creatures appear at the tree that he was just at. Now, when he's retelling his story later on, he says that there are these big, hideous creatures, and he couldn't call them anything else but devils. And he was positive that if he didn't see them when he did, if he didn't make it out in the nick of time, that he would not have made it out alive. So,
Wow.
yeah, already off to a pretty terrifying start, but I mean, yeah, you can believe him, but it could also be just like a scary story that he told, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I have some doubt. I'm not fully convinced that something went on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our next case happens in 1920, and this happens in Nulato, Alaska, and there was a guy by the name of Albert Petka. He came stumbling into town and had all of these gashes and major wounds over him, and he's explaining that he had just been attacked by some bushman. That was the only thing that he could call it before his dogs were able to drive off this attacker.
Wow.
Now, unfortunately, even though he was able to get into town, there was really nothing that these villagers could have done. I mean, the damage was already done, and Petka actually later died from his injuries. So this brings a whole nother layer on top of the story. I mean, this isn't some guy who's saying, oh, I had a crazy experience and I narrowly missed. I mean, this guy actually died. It's hard to say, like, Petka used his last breath to be like, oh, I'm gonna lie and make a really scary story to scare the shit out of these people, rather than say, hey, this is what really happened to me. Right. Here in my research, I started to get a little scared. So during 1943, there's another violent attack that takes place, and this one is near Ruby, Alaska, at Delwide's camp. Now, there's a guy there by the name of John Meyer, or the Dutchman, as people in town like to call him, I guess. He was actually a resident of Portlock, the town that we're going to be talking about, and he was crouching down minding his own business when suddenly, out of nowhere, he feels this major amount of pressure on his back, like someone just jumped on him, and then he starts feeling swings, heavy blows come to his body as someone starts attacking him. And when he looks back to try and get a glance of who is this creature on me, he sees what he can only describe as a bushman violently swinging at him.
Wow. Yeah, no thanks.
No, thank you. I'm good. You can get off my back now. Now, thankfully, this guy had a dog with him too, and the dogs were able to kind of bark and able to drive off this creature that was attacking him. And after the dogs were able to get him off, Meyer was able to reach his boat. He got in and he went to the nearest village, where again, he goes into the village with all of these ghastly wounds on him, telling villagers that some big creature from the woods had gone and attacked him, only for the villagers to really be able to do nothing. And Meyer actually died later on from those injuries.
Ooh.
So you have all of these random Bigfoot occurrences happening all throughout Alaska, but out of all of the occurrences that I found, the events in Portlock were by far the most terrifying and honestly revealed the most into a potential creature or bushman or Bigfoot or bullworm, whatever you want to call it, actually existing. Before we get into the
For sure.
Before we get into the nitty gritty, I got to give you a quick history lesson, okay? Can't just encourage you to drink a lot. We got to teach you some things, make you look good for mom and dad. Portlock is located on the far southwest edge of the Kenai Peninsula. I have no idea what that means, and I'm sure neither do you, so we will post a photo of it. But if you happen to be in the Alaska area, it's not too far northeast from Kodiak Island. And it is so small and tucked away that you cannot get there by car or normal travel. Some people say, like, maybe you can get there by an ATV, but the people that live in the villages nearby say no, that's not possible. So really the only way for you to get to this place is by boat or a bush plane. And if you were to go there today, you could actually still see some of the structure that was the old town of Portlock and how people had left it last. So the first people to actually inhabit this island were the British Royal Navy, and the town is actually named after its captain, Nathaniel Portlock, and they hit shore in 1786. And basically they were there in order to try and get fur needed for a private partnership that Portlock had with two men named George Dixon and Richard Etches. And this was all under the command of King George. So they were going over to Portlock, trying to get their coin, trying to get some fur, make their way. So they only stayed about 3 weeks during mid-July. And all of this is in a book from 1789 called A Voyage Around the World, but more particularly the Northwest of Coast America. Yes, that's a book title. It's oddly specific. Oh my goodness. But it just basically talks about the whole journey, how they anchored around Cook Inlet, and which Portlock calls Cook River, and they do history stuff. By the earlier 20th centuries, after some time has passed, in 1911, Saldovia Salmon Company had actually built its first cannery in the Lower Cook Inlet, and in 1912, Fidalgo Island Packing Company had built a cannery up in Port Graham. And for those who don't know, a cannery is literally a place where they can things. Context clues.
Probably fish, yeah.
Yeah. Probably fish with all the salmon and fish in Alaska. Yes. Okay, I'm going to stop talking. So 3 years later, Portlock pops up. Finally, we get to the good stuff. It pops up as a cold storage facility for cod and halibut. And most of the villagers that lived there were fishermen, lumbermen. They were miners. Miners like coal miners, not miners. Like 18 and under, no. Like, yeah. Clarification. And nearly all of them were of Russian and Alaskan native descent. It was mainly known for the cannery that had happened there, but it also had a chromite mine. It had territorial boarding school for all the neighboring children in the area. And Portlock or Port Chatham, the names intertwine. Either that or it was a neighboring village. I've read both theories. But either way, Portlock grew. So they even got their own post office in 1921. And they officially became recognized on the census name of the United States government. So, real official shit's going on. Portlock's thriving. It's getting big. People are wanting to go in. People are wanting to work. And they're starting to expand. They're starting to expand into those woods that hold maybe a creepy creature. And some shit starts to go down. Yeah.
Did they have a Portlock?
Huh? What?
Did they have a Portlock?
Oh, like a potluck?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Wah, wah.
Let's, you know what? We'll drink more wine until we make it funny. Back to the terrifying and strange. So, 1931 is the year that we are now in. Let's close our eyes and imagine. Unless you're driving, please do not do that. There's a man by the name of Andrew Camluck. He's just gone out logging. He's in the woods near Port Chatham. It's a beautiful day. Grass is so green. Water's so blue you can hear it cross the path. You're out there. You're doing big logger shit. All of a sudden, your world goes black.
Oh.
Grass isn't green anymore. Water's gone. What happened? You don't know because you're dead. Sorry, that was so bad.
I see it. I see it all.
Oh, Andrew, I'm sorry. I really did you dirty with that. Okay, so Andrew goes out logging. Some other loggers eventually go out to join him, and they stumble across his dead body. It is sprawled out on the ground, and it has a large blow to the head. Now, the only type of evidence as to what could have happened was a large piece of logging equipment that had blood on it. But it was at least like 10 feet away from his body. So it's not like he could have hit his head and theoretically, I guess, like stumbled the 10 feet. Well, I mean, like in my mind, I guess he could have. It seems pretty logical, but I guess the way that they're wording it, there was not a blood trail or there wasn't any evidence.
Dragging trail.
Yeah, to say like, oh, he hit his head and then somehow got to where his body was. There's just no evidence to support it. And the funny thing about this, I know I already said it, but this is a heavy piece of equipment. In the words of the other loggers, this is it's a piece of equipment that you can't basically like pick up and hit someone over the head with just one person. Like, you need to get a big fucking, like, crane in there and pick it up and then swing it over and then put it back down. And one, someone would easily notice a crane, and two, I don't think that cranes were invented just yet, right? I don't know. 1930s?
Yeah, they had some, probably, yeah.
Probably, like a wood crane.
Some kind of farming equipment that
there was
used for
a
machinery.
wooden crane
like
some hamsters would have ran and like powered some giant hamsters and the wood crane. Where would someone would have seen those giant hamsters? It's just impossible. There's no way. So it's all sketchy. So around the same time that this is all going on, there is an elder in town called Simon Kavanuskinoff. That's his last name, and I'm sticking to it. Okay? We're going on. So he was saying that there was a gold miner near the town of Port Graham, which is present-day Nantiinuq. Don't come for me. And this gold miner headed out for work one day and just never returned. No one heard anything from him again. Just boop.
Wow.
But this isn't it. That's not all. The story doesn't end there. This is an hour-long podcast, roughly. There are multiple reports that men from this town would just go missing. If they went to go hunt the Dall sheep, gone. There's a bear that they think is responsible for all the missing people, and we're gonna go track it down. Gone. I gotta go take a shit, and the woods are the nearest thing that I can take a shit in. Gone. It's all gone. No, people are just disappearing left and right. It's getting a little insane. Yeah. So this is happening over the span of like a decade. People are just coming up, disappearing, taking shits, can't take shits anymore. Shit's going crazy. So there is a fisherman by the name of Tom Larson who actually ends up running into this thing. So he is out chopping wood for fish traps, doing big man shit that you do in Alaska, when all of a sudden he looks over and spots this large, hairy creature out walking on the shoreline of the beach. So freaked out, obviously knowing everything that's been going on in his town, all the
Yeah.
spooky shit that's been
He
going.
probably just sees me this summer because I don't shave my legs. It's me.
Is that the big hairy bush man? No, it's just Sara.
It's just me, guys.
Just Sara not shaving. Obviously freaked out. He decides, instead of running away, this guy decides to run all the way home, which okay, I get the logic in running home because that's where you feel safe, but he goes home to grab his rifle and then runs all the way back to confront the creature, which I'm like, why don't you just stay home? There are so many people that have been disappearing in your town and you're gonna go confront it? Like, I don't think a gun, but whatever. He goes to confront it and goes to the water's edge, points the gun up, has his finger on the trigger, ready to fire, when he just kind of freezes and he can't explain it in any other way other than he just like had a gut feeling not to shoot it. So he didn't shoot it and let it walk away. I think he was
Proud
just
of him.
I think
also-
he was trying to get some girls in town. Maybe his wife had just left him and he was a little lonely and wanted some action because
Yeah.
And then, like, why would the creatures stay on the beach that long?
I was gonna say it was in the same spot, just waited there.
Yeah. And, like, apparently these...
How old was this guy?
Right? I don't know. It doesn't say. But, I don't know. These, like, apparently these creatures don't like to be seen. So it's all getting sketchy. It's all sketch. There is actually an article in 1973 from the Anchorage Daily News, and this is where shit gets real. So, during the height of World War II in the 1940s, there actually were rumors going around in town of bodies washing up to the shore. And not just body parts, but body parts that were violently torn to shreds. And the people that found these body parts said that there's no way, like, a bear could have done it. I guess, like, maybe...
Where'd they come from?
Some lagoon. They
Like
don't...
in the ocean, or it was a landlocked, like a lagoon, I guess.
I think, yeah, lagoon's like a landlock. I cannot remember. There's some TV show where the mom is trying to sell a pool, and it's like kidney pool, and she's like, that's such an ugly name. What can I name this other than a kidney pool? And then the kid goes, no, Mom, it's a lagoon. And she's like, oh, yeah. So I think that means that lagoon is enclosed, long story short. But
Yeah, or like
it's like a lake.
connected to
I think it's like a
a
lake.
body of water by stream into lagoon, possibly. Yeah, but that makes sense. So they could be coming from...
Well, then I don't
Yeah.
know, because if it's like washing up onto shore, doesn't it technically need like some kind of wave? Let's fucking debunk it right here. Let's go, science. Like, how would it be able to...
Well, it could be maybe big enough to where it has a little shore, and maybe body parts just started floating up from the bottom. Like if said Sasquatch was using it as dumping grounds or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's all... like, it's in the newspaper, so you're like, oh, I gotta believe it. But it's saying that this happened in the 40s, and it's a 1973 article. So I'm like,
yeah. Okay.
What'd you find?
I don't know if you can... It's like
Yeah, so it's like an enclosed little...
oceanic little lake. So it can be big enough to where it has shore.
But then, like, how would it be able, like, do lakes have their own tide? Or, like, how would the body parts be able to... Whatever. Either way, some body parts were going up on shore. People were freaking out. Crazy shit was going on. On top of this, there are some villagers that went out, like, to go track a moose, you know, like Alaskan shit. So on top of this, you have some villagers that were out tracking moose over some soft ground near Portlock when they had actually talked about how they found giant, what they could only describe as like man-like tracks over 18 inches in length, closing up on the moose tracks that they were in fact trying to follow. So they're coming into the village saying, like, there's proof that there is something, like, over 6 feet tall, roaming around the mountains, big, hairy man. And I just gotta know, is he single?
Hell yeah. You know what they say about shoe size, girl?
Hit me up, Mr. Big, Hairy Bushman. Okay. Join our Patreon so you can pay for my therapy. So they also find signs of a short struggle in the grass where it's matted down. They say that there is blood everywhere and even bits of what look like moose or bear meat around the crime scene or like the little fight. So some wild shit just went down. So something is going on. They see that the tracks, as soon as the fight is over, lead up to the densely fogged mountain. So I mean, it's like something big enough to take a moose down. It's a big boy out there doing scary, scary shit.
Yeah. Did you see that video that went pretty viral a couple years ago about that huge moose in the middle of a town, probably in maybe Alaska or maybe it was Minnesota or somewhere? But it was just this huge moose that was walking across the little town, totally out of place, but it was huge.
No.
Oh, well, I'm just saying, basically the moose was really big, so.
It was a really big. Well, I mean, even Jenny. I know she probably sent you the photo of when she was living out in Wyoming, and she near Yellowstone National Park, and she sent that photo of that bison that was like right outside of her freaking home, like huge. So like think that. But then the moose is probably even bigger than that. So then think even, like, bigger than that.
The huge bitch.
That's a big old bitch right there. So, we have this guy, Brian Weed. Sick last name, bro. He's a co-founder of a group called Juneau's Hidden History. And they talk about how 36 people pretty much had, like, been vanished or were found torn to shreds or murdered in some capacity over the course of like a 20-year period. So this isn't some podcast or this isn't some case where we're just like shits and giggles throwing some laughs around. Like, no, this is, people actually died. Like, there are actually actual written cases of people either disappearing or dying in a mysterious circumstance, and no one has any explanation to what happened. It's just kind of like, good luck, guys. So they decided, the people of Portlock decided, not good luck, guys. Actually, fuck that. If no one is going to help us out, we're gonna leave. I don't want to be here anymore. So in 1949, the residents all at one point just unanimously gathered all their shit and fucking left.
Huh.
They were done with that bull spit.
Shit.
Yeah. So, oh man, this part is so fucked up because I don't know if this guy already, I mean, he probably already had his job at the post office, but the guy at the post office had to stay until, like, the post office officially closed, which wasn't until a year later in 1950. So this poor guy is staying in this ghost town by himself, and I'm just like, who did you piss off in your former life to get that job? Because holy shit, he said it was the most horrifying experience of his life. He said that he would see creatures walking near the tree line. He said that he would hear the most creepiest, eerie sounds at night. Ugh. No one wants to go around Portlock. It's the Alaskan hotspot of gossip. Everyone knows, like, some scary shit's going down. And if you are a resident of Portlock, you are, like, a freaking celebrity up in Alaska. There is a woman, actually, by the name of Melania Helen Kell, who was a villager that was just a child when her parents had decided to pack their things and leave Port Chatham. Melania was born on January 25th of 1934, and she had voiced and, like, what's the word that I'm looking for? She verified the multiple events that had caused these villagers to leave, and in her words, she said that it was caused by the hands of the Nantiinaq. I'm saying that really bad. Mr. Ballin says it a certain way. The, like, wording of it online was a little bit different. I don't know, so I'm just gonna say the Nantiinaq. I'm sorry if that's wrong, but we'll move on. Kristen doesn't know how to talk anyways. Not only was Kale, like, just some random child. So Kale was not just some random child that had lived in the village and I'm just bringing up for shits and gigs. Like, she actually had close ties to the events that I had just spoken about. So Andrew Kamluck, the guy who had that mysterious blow to the head with that large piece of equipment, that was actually her godfather. So she was related to someone that had died by the hands of whatever was roaming around Portlock. So yeah, kind of hard to
like dismiss.
There you go. I can't fucking talk right now.
It's okay. Hey, neither usually can I, so
it's fine. It's pretty hard to, like, dismiss these events that she's saying. But then later on in the document, she goes on, and all sources will be mentioned down below. But later on in the article that I was reading, she starts to talk about a spirit also that haunted Portlock, and it was a woman dressed in draping black clothes, and she would come out of the cliffs, and she wore a dress so long that it would drag, and she had a very white face and would disappear back into the cliffs. And, you know, I was laying in my bed pretty scared until I read that part, and up until that point I'm like, I mean, yeah, I get it, but Bigfoot and ghosts, I get a little weary.
But what if it could have been one of his victims, like the ghost of one of his victims?
And, like, that's a thing that I was thinking of too, maybe, because, I mean, over 3 dozen people killed, that is
at least.
That is at least a ghost or two, at least. So I know a lot of the murders that I had talked about were men. And in nowhere did I read about a woman disappearing or being murdered, but I'm sure there was at least one. Well, I really wasn't going to mention my disdain for that ghost comment until I found a very interesting article about a woman named Sally Ash. Now, Miss Sally Ash over here lived in Nantiinuq. I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, so it's fine. But her mom was born in Dogfish Bay near Port Chatham / Portlock, however you want to look at it. And Sally would actually go on to become a translator for her cousin, Miss Melania Kale.
Oh.
Dun dun dun. What Sally had to say about those interviews actually, like, fucking, I was shitting my pants, and then I read this and I was like, oh, okay, so people fucking suck and that's just the way the world goes. So Sally actually stated that Melania had made the entire story up. Well, not the entire story, but she made some shit up. She was getting tired of people asking her if the story was true. She was over the 15 minutes of fame, that little limelight.
I know you said her birthday earlier, but it makes me wonder her zodiac sign, because I didn't think about it at first.
Oh, my mom is a... Oh, God, it's whatever my mom is. I don't know what my mom is. Fuck, I'm a bad daughter. Their birthday is right next to each other. I don't know what she is, though. She basically said that she made up the story about how Bigfoot was killing people. It just wasn't true. Everyone knew it, but in Sally's defense, it was not her place to say anything. She said that we all knew, but we couldn't stop her. We were brought up in a way where we can't tell our elders that they are wrong. So it basically brings up a huge, like, what if? Who is the liar out of this situation? Is it going to be Sally, who, you know, maybe she's like, she's a little petty bitch. She's jealous of the fame. She wants an article all about herself too.
Yeah.
My cousin's a lying ass hoe, and I deserve the full frontal page. Not her, me. Or is she really telling the truth, and her cousin Melania is just, like, hoeing the people of Alaska by saying, like, oh, all these people died, and they really didn't. It gets a little tricky. I know that Brian Weed is a co-founder of some group in Juneau, and he does state that there are, like, over 36 deaths. But when you really look into it, and again, you are talking to me here, so I didn't look that into it, it's kind of hard to, if you do an automatic Google search, validate the deaths or the missing person cases. You know, like, there is a Alaskan, like, news article. So Alaska, really fun fact, is Alaska has a news archive program that's, like, all digital. So if you want to find any kind of, like, random Alaskan news article from, like, 1914 or something like that till, like, present day, they have it archived to where you can, like, go online and look at it. So it was really cool, and I would flip through it, and I flipped through news articles that were in Portlock around that area around that time, and I mean, they were right. There really isn't anything about any kind of deaths. There isn't anything about any kind of missing people. There isn't anything to validate the death or any of the creepy shit going on until that article in 1973. So is it the people of Portlock trying to hide what's going on, or is it just that this is all a lie and no one really died?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, indigenous populations in general have a problem with their peoples going missing or getting murdered, being taken seriously in the first place, and it's always been like that, so...
Yeah, I mean, with your family living on a reservation, you have a really close tie to that, and...
Yeah, I mean, and it's across the world, you know, people
Yeah.
of color.
Yeah, it's not just here, which is super fucking unfortunate, man, and people suck, so that's why it's hard. It's hard to say who's who. Like, either Melania's lying or Sally's lying. One of them is, but it's going to be hard at this point to know the truth. But what you can say is for sure is that Andrew Camluck, Melania's godfather, actually was slain. So out of all of these strange mishappenings, there actually was, and I mean, not only Andrew, there was the guy in Ruby. Let me scroll up and get their names. Albert Petka and John Meyer, two other guys who were alive and well and just died because someone or something had attacked them. So maybe the bodies didn't go up into the lagoon, and maybe there weren't missing people going away when they went to go hunting or fishing, but there are still 2 deaths where people were attacked by something that they say wasn't human, and you still have an accidental death. So even if 60% of the story is bullshit, you still have a good 40% where you're just left saying, like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But even with Sally saying that her cousin was completely lying and not telling the truth about any of the deaths of the Nantiinaq, she still doesn't completely deny the existence of this. In fact, she actually goes on to describe an experience that her brother had where he was out fishing and there was this rather large creature with what he could only describe as, like, a horrid stench. And just, like, when you think of not showering for, what was it, 58 days?
98.
98 days? Like, think of that times 1,000. Like, just wretched stench was the only
Times
thing.
365 a year.
For 420 years.
A life. Wait.
Just bad. So, yeah. So, just imagine, like, the worst stench that you've ever smelled times a million. It was just really bad. Sees this really bad smelling creature, and for whatever reason says that, like, it looked like it was part human. Like, this wasn't a bear, this wasn't some kind of animal, this was something that looked like it had some kind of human characteristic to it. So, just really weird, freaky shit going on.
Yikes.
So you have all this going on, and kind of like after the article with Sally, everything kind of dies off. You don't really hear anything else about it. And really, the people of Portlock, or after the people of Portlock leave, no one dares to return. I mean, even people who are somewhat interested in it, obviously you have a lot of YouTubers wanting to go out there. You have a lot of, like, people wanting to get famous, trying to find the creature of Portlock. There are plenty of videos on Amazon and whatnot, but it's a really rare handful that you see actually try to go out. And really, the people that do go to Portlock become stuck there due to unfortunate circumstances. So you have, like, groups of fishermen that were said to have been caught in a storm, and they had to make do with the land of Portlock. And as soon as they get off their boats and they're, like, ready to make camp near the tree lines, they see a huge creature, and they just decide, you know, fuck that, and turn right around and, like, go back out into the storm.
They minded their damn business.
They minded their damn business, and they stayed the fuck away, which is, hello, learn a lesson from them. That's the best thing to do. So really, the last story I was able to find of Portlock came from a guy named Ed. He wanted to stay anonymous, so take that with a grain of salt. This was posted on a blog online on the internet. You know how the internet is. She's sometimes sketchy. But he did say that he was working as a paramedic in 1990 in Anchorage, and he had received a call from a man having a heart attack in the state jail in Eagle River. Mind you, like, I think the jail called him, not the man, but yeah. Details. So the guy was a native in his 70s, and once Ed was able to get him stabilized, he began to transport him over to the native hospital in Anchorage. And over there on the way to the hospital, obviously, Ed and this older man are trying to make small talk, just trying to get him calm, get through the ride a little easier. And that's when they find that they have a common interest of hunting. So they begin talking about hunting, you know, where have you hunted? What kind of game have you caught? Did I just use that right? Am I well versed? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think you got it.
I think I did too.
Yeah.
Don't tell me if I'm wrong. I don't want to know. Just let me think I'm right.
No. I've never been hunting. I've gone to hunting leases to party.
You know, I was just over in Austin, and there is this huge house that it literally looks like an amusement park when you walk up. There is a giraffe, like a real sized bronze statue of a giraffe in front of this huge ass mansion. And when we looked it up, we were like, there's no way that that's a legit house. So we Googled it, and it is a legit house, and it's to this dude who owns a lot of, like, exotic pets, I guess, like exotic birds and all this crazy shit. And we were like, damn, does he offer, like, tours and whatnot? And it was like, no, the guy just lives there. And apparently the neighbors are real pissed because those birds are real fucking loud.
I can imagine.
It was insane. Like, the statue alone probably cost more than my house. I mean, probably not. It was maybe like 10,000, 20,000, but still a fucking big ass bronze statue. Yeah, probably more. I'm not rich. I don't know these things, but it was huge. Oh
no, just from an artist standpoint, yeah. Not that I'm
from my
an
accounting
artist in any means, but
from my accounting standpoint, I would say $50,000 times present value carry over the future time value.
my head
Squared.
just spun backwards and back around.
Good, because none of that was real, so it should have.
Even if it was, it would do the same. It would make me glitch, okay?
Sorry, alcohol is important right now. The podcast
Yeah.
is Sorry, alcohol is more important than talking on this podcast. So, we are back to Dogfish Bay. Ed is hunting. He's not hunting, but the old man and him are talking about hunting in Dogfish Bay. And so, all of a sudden, as soon as Ed mentions that, yes, in fact, No, we were talking about game. Okay. So, they're talking about hunting, and Ed says that he actually had been hunting near Dogfish Bay. And as soon as Ed says Dogfish Bay, this old man, even though he's, like, in the middle of a heart attack, fucking shoots right up, is like, "What did you just say?" And then grabs Ed by the front of his shirt, looks him right in the face, and just looks him right in the face and says, "Did it bother you?" And as soon as the old man says this, Ed's hair on the back of his neck just goes straight up. And the only words that Ed can gasp out is yes. And then the old man goes, "Did you see it?" And then Ed replies, "No." But then he goes, "But did you see it?" And then the old man goes, "No." "But I had a brother that done seen it." And guess what? It even chased him. And then Ed goes, "Wow."
Wow.
But then,
Intense.
But then later on in the article, Ed kind of describes, I guess, like, his experience with the creature. And this is what I was reading when I was high on life, because I live in Texas, and the only thing we get high off of is life in this state. And so
Texas,
I started to get a little nervous. So I was now I say now, the year was 1973, and the month was of August. So,
it was it?
It was.
Because that month is that month of that same year is important for my story, my next story. So this is concurrent.
Ooh,
news.
So you best stay. Now I say you best stay tuned for next or for Friday's episode. Stay tuned to find out more for part 2. So, it was August of 1973, and Ed and 2 of his other buddies decided to go out bow hunting for goats and blackies, which I assumed was black bears. I'm not a hunter, so I really don't know. When all of a sudden a storm forced them to take shelter out in Dogfish Bay Lagoon. They had not planned on staying the night, camping over, so all Ed had with him was a green canvas tent and a little center pole to prop it up on. And so he props up his tent, they get a little fire going, they eat some dinner, clean their plate so no black bears will come and get them, and they just settle in for the night. They relaxing, no big deal. They're just going to sit out the storm.
Super relaxing.
Honestly, it sounds like a camping trip that we took to Austin a couple of years ago.
Like where our tent broke and it was like drizzling.
I was even gonna say, I think one of our tents are green.
Yeah.
Remember, we legit used to go camping in a it's a junior-sized one-person tent. And Sara whips this thing out, and she goes, "Oh, me and my dad used to sleep in this all the time." I'm like, bitch, I gotta crumple my feet up to sit in this all the way, and we're gonna sleep in this for the night. So It's me and Sara in our little dark green canvas tent that's meant for a junior.
Gotta start somewhere.
Well, we really did upgrade. Like the next year we had a really good tent, but camping memories, so good. Well, eventually we'll get out of the camping stories, I promise. We're only episode 3 in, gotta give us a sec, but...
Spillage!
Whoops! So, after they have dinner... You do not tell the audience what happens during our break time. During our alcohol sip time.
Maybe y'all get to... Y'all. That's Texan for you will all.
You all.
You will all.
Y'all all.
Y'all see in the future. Hopefully, if you ever see our videos.
Tell your friends about us, and maybe you'll get to see us live on the TV. So after going to sleep, they're in Snooze Town. All is quiet, just aside from some mild howling winds. Little. So it's around 2 a.m. when Ed is suddenly woken up by one of his hunting companions, Dennis, and Dennis tells him that he hears someone walking right outside of the tent. So as soon as Ed hears this, his heart fucking drops. And he does that little thing where it's like, you know, you're in the car and you're trying to get directions to the place, so you turn the volume all the way down to make yourself direct better visually. So he does that, but with his ears. So he turns his little eye vision down and he makes his ear volume all the way up, and he is listening and he hears that bass. He can hear what only sounds like 2 feet. So he, in his mind, he's like, it can't be a bear. This isn't something that's on 4 feet. It's up, walking bipedally. Not walking.
Good one.
Yeah.
A biped.
Learned that in college. Yeah, good shit. So he's not walking, but rather he's creeping around the tent until he makes a full circle.
Big, slow, heavy, creepy.
18-inch butt steps. And you know what they say about big feet. Big problems. I don't know.
Unless it was a Miss Bigfoot.
And then you know what they say about big titties. No personality.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't know.
You can tell this is a small itty-bitty community hosting this podcast, so... But that's all that happens for the first night, at least how I read it. So yeah, that's all that happens the first night.
Bigfoot's a creep.
Yeah. He's creepy. He's wondering if he can sneak in and grab some panties. He wants to know what's up. So that's all that happens for the first night. The second night, they're kind of like doing that. Bro, yeah, that was some like, oh, you were scared. Nah, you were scared. You weren't scared. I was scared. No, was I scared? Nah, you were scared. They're doing that shit, and they kind of end up like, yeah, no, I'm not scared, but let's leave the pistol locked and loaded and a flashlight in between us while we go to sleep. And they're like, yeah, I'm not scared, but that sounds like a good idea. Let's do it. So they do just that, and they decide to go back to sleep, and they end up dozing off, but then Ed is woken again by Dennis squeezing his leg, and when he goes to check his little watch, it's 2:30, so around the same time as the night before. And as soon as he looks up to kind of like get his bearings on what's going on, he looks up and sees the third companion, Joe, is actually already awake and has his rifle in hand and is like ready to fucking go out guns blazing, shoot whatever is out there.
Blast off.
Yeah. So it was then when he kind of like sees the gravity of the situation, adheres a step that he says could not have been more than 10 feet away from the tent. So
I don't know how you can hear what 10 feet is. I just suck so bad at that.
Like, he's a hunter, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, like, bro, you're just saying this to get chicks.
Well, I can only try to comprehend.
It's crazy shit. And again, yeah, so he said that it sounded like it was on 2 feet. Don't know how we can, well, maybe, I don't know, because then if you're walking one paw at a time, then it could easily be a mistake for 2 feet. I don't know. But it took step after agonizing step until it completed the same half circle. They're like chilling there. Well, they're not chilling. They're fucking terrified. So they're there for hours and they're like, what the fuck do we do, man? What's the right move? If we go out there, are we gonna die? What's gonna go on? What's gonna happen? So finally they're like, fuck it. Enough is enough. You're a little bitch. No, you're a little bitch. No, you're a little bitch. And finally, the one that drew littlest bitch went guns blazing out. But he didn't find anything. He brought a flashlight out with him. They looked around. They couldn't find anything. They couldn't even find tracks. So it was kind of like a mystery, I guess, as to what. Yeah. So I don't know. This is also around the same year that I found the other story of the 3 gentlemen going hunting and then seeing a big creature in the tree line and then disappearing. I'm not going to speculate and say that this is the same group, but it may be the same group, just exaggerating their experience. I don't know. I don't want to say, but I will say that there's a lot of correlating timelines to make me think that maybe some of this is not true. But it all just depends. I'm ruining it. It's fine.
Up.
Yeah, it adds up.
But then also, if it were like diving deep into the Bigfoot, why not just separate them?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. There are a lot of questions. So by the 3rd night, they are basically like, fuck it. We're done doing this. If this guy decides to come into our site, to come into our camp, mess with our shit, we are going to go out and we're going to fuck his world up. And then nothing happens and they get a break in the storm and then they leave. And the end, That's how it ends. Yeah. So it's all kind of, I don't know, it's
he said, she said.
It's a lot of he said, she said. There's a lot of really fucked up stories, but then you have people saying, oh, it's not as fucked up as you believe. It's maybe made up. You have maybe you have like 2 or 3 murders that can for sure be counted for. But other than that, like, that is Portlock. Hi, welcome to the end of this podcast. That is Portlock, Alaska, and the big hairy bushman that terrorizes it. But does he terrorize it? I mean,
yeah.
At the end of the day, you do have Andrew, you do have whatever his name is, all of those guys, Albert, you have that other dude. So you have a couple of people that did die in mysterious circumstances. So something did happen there. Regardless of if you believe the 3 dozen people that went murdered or missing or whatever on top of that, there is still 2 or 3 murders that legit can be accounted for, really did happen, and there's no explanation to it. And at the end of the day, there is still a town that decided this shit is too scary, I'm going to leave. So how are you to say that those body parts didn't end up washing up to that part of... Like, something so traumatic must have happened for an entire town. We're not just talking 1 or 2 people or a family or maybe half the town. You're saying an entire town just decided one day to up and leave.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just something about people actually, this isn't some kind of folklore where it's like, oh, so-and-so supposedly died. Like, you do have actual deaths that happen. And on top of that, you have a full-ass town that decided something was so terrifying, everybody in that town had to leave. That they left a poor postman to fend for himself, basically, essentially, and just like...
That's crazy, because usually a town fully evacuates because of a natural disaster of some sort, or some kind of nuclear disaster.
Yeah.
Not because of some kind of mysterious bushman.
And it's like the only way to leave that town is through a boat or bush plane, which... I'm like, all dirty jokes aside, I don't believe a bush plane is very large. So,
no.
They either all had to get on, like, one huge boat or, like, just
unless
take all
helicopters were a thing.
Yeah, a plane. Helicopter. No, those are different. I don't know. It's all sketchy. Like, reading this... The horror lover in me wants to believe everything, but obviously the skeptical person in me that, like, is able to put me to sleep at night by saying all of this shit is bullshit. Like, there are some points in this case where I'm like, ooh, I don't know. Like, I doubt it. But at the end of the day... Oh my
gosh. Huh. If anybody out there has any kind of personal stories or attachments to people with stories regarding a Bigfoot or Bushman or Sasquatch
or alien,
email us,
or literally anything in general, yes, email us, let us know.
Please.
So if you live in Alaska and you have a Bigfoot story, I need to hear about it. I need to hear about it yesterday.
Because, you know, like, a lot of the Bigfoot and Sasquatch stories I've heard have not been in Alaska, that's for sure. So this is the first Alaskan Bigfoot story I've heard, which was cool.
That's so wild because, I mean, honestly, like, I'm just not a Bigfoot lover. Maybe it's a shame that I'm doing this case, I don't know, but it caught my interest so much when I heard it because I am such a big disbeliever. When I read this, I was like, wait, okay, so is there a Sasquatch looking at me through my slit holes in my window? Like, I need to know because I'm actually terrified. I had dreams that a big hairy creature killed me. That is how, like, in my brain I was about this actually happening. And I only thought that maybe it happened in Alaska. But I know that photo wasn't taken in Alaska, so, I mean, obviously...
No, I'm pretty sure it was Northern California, but I could be wrong.
I'm pretty sure it was California, but I just...
It's good that it piqued your interest, though, because having a different view of things, you know, you have the potential to learn things and maybe have it change your view or just have it leave you with more questions.
It for sure left me with more questions.
Yeah.
When I'm 90 and wrinkly and crusty and dusty and just ready to poof on into the world, y'all, this is my vocal will. I am telling y'all, when I'm still alive, I want to be taken into Portlock, Alaska. Take me in a little bush plane. And you drop me off and you say, bye. You leave me with a pound of weed and some wrapping papers. And I
probably want some pre-rolls.
Oh, okay. Okay, pre-roll it for me. You know what? Just make it easier. Give me some fucking dabs. I need some strong shit. You give me some little dab pens or some edibles. You put me on my way. You just put me up on like 1,000 milligrams of some edibles. You send me out into the forest and you say, okay, Grandma Kristen, you go and you find out what it is in those big bed forests. And I'll be like, what, Alaskan bullworm? What were you just saying? But it's fine and dandy because as long as it kills me, you know, I'm gonna be too fucking high to realize what's going on. So,
Grandma Kristen won with the Bigfoot. Look at my socks.
It's a ghost! Hi, ghosties.
They have ghosts on them.
You should charge extra for that foot porn.
Right? Oh my. Ghostly sock foot. Pay my rent, please.
Paying my rent, ghostly sock foot. Okay, so I think that is all of the drunk ramblings that your ears need for the night or morning, depending on which unfortunate hour you decided to click on this podcast. Should I stop being so negative? Maybe I should start being positive.
Good night. Good morning.
Good night. Good morning. This was a lovely podcast for you to tune into, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. So much. It was just so fucking great, right? Well, this is your host, Kristen.
And your other host, Sara. Thank you I'm so sorry.
Thank you. So sorry. But until next time, this has been Red Rum.
And red wine.
Bye!